Hello, everyone. This is Socrates and Tyler Jenks with the Hyperwave YouTube channel. We are going to be taking a look at Bitcoin today and also going to be looking at some of the price action in the altcoins. But before getting into that, I did want to share with you guys a little bit about our plan moving forward. We have, as you guys know, started to do these regular podcasts every day, 4 o'clock on Eastern time, taking Saturday off and then coming back on Sunday to do the Bitcoin weekly close at 8 o'clock Eastern time. And moving forward, we are wanting to make this a little bit more segmented and do different shows on different days of the week for different topics. And I just wanted to share with you the topics that we are going to be starting with. We're going to hopefully be getting this going early next week, still working out some of the finer details. But we'll be continuing with the Bitcoin weekly close on Sunday evenings, and then we'll be looking to complement that by looking at a traditional market weekly close on Friday afternoon. We'll also be trying to do some more interviews. Hopefully we'll be able to get one per week. If not, then we will end up doing something else there, or maybe just have a complimentary segment for when we don't have interviews. Then we will also be putting together a trader's tool belt where we take a deep dive into different indicators that we find so important, such as the parabolic SAR, Consensio, TD sequential, all down the line. There's a number of indicators that both of us follow on a regular basis that we will be putting together some training material for, so that everyone, that when you hear us talk about the Coppic curve and you maybe don't know what it is or what it was designed for or what we use it for, then you will be able to go onto our YouTube channel, find the segment for Trader's Tool Belt, and then hopefully there will be one for the indicator that you are looking up. Eventually we plan to have one for each indicator that we talk about, but that will take some time to get together. We also will be doing a question and answer segment. We wanted to thank everybody for asking some great questions, and also some of you for sending in some tips. We have been keeping our eye on that and trying to work it into the show, but we just simply have a hard time keeping it to a timely fashion, such that we're usually in a rush to get through what we want to go through, and we really never have time to do any question and answer. So moving forward, we are going to dedicate one day to just question and answers, such that you guys can show up on that day, ask your questions. That's all that we're going to be doing, is looking at chat and responding to those questions. And then we will also look at doing a Hyperwave show. This has been called the Hyperwave channel, but since for the last few months, we really haven't been looking into mini hyperwaves at all, because there is so much else going on with specifically the stock market, gold and Bitcoin and the altcoins, that we really haven't been even looking at any of the hyperwaves. And there still are a number that are active specifically in the traditional markets. So we will look to have a specific show once per week that is all dedicated to analyzing active hyperwaves. So that is the game plan that we have moving forward. Very exciting stuff. So let's hear what you think, Tyler.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. Leah did a fantastic job all last year trying to keep the subjects interesting. There's so much to talk about, but having this very specific timetable where everybody knows on Wednesdays, for example, is Q&A day, and we won't really get into the charts unless a question begs us to do that, where our answer will come off the charts. But at the same time, we're going to be able to cover a lot more ground in an organized way. And so you know already that Sunday nights around 8 o'clock, we're going to be talking about the Bitcoin close. You know that on Fridays, we're going to be talking about the weekly closes on the traditional markets. And this is all Socrates' idea along with Leah. But I've been thinking about it because every time I go back trying to find information in a blog, I can't find the silly things because we've got 150 or 160 of them, and they're not in an order that makes it easy to find out from your perspective, but even from my perspective, what the heck I said and why I said it. And all of that will also end up on the lucidinvestmentstrategy.com website in categories, so that you'll be able to go to a category and you'll see all of the stuff from that category right there without having to search through things. So it's a small thing, but it's going to pay very big dividends for us as presenters and as for you as followers. So I'm very, very excited about that. I've been busy all day with a bunch of organizational things. As you know, Socrates has come on as a partner. Leah is beginning to take over a whole new section for us, and we'll give you more information about that at a later time. We will be doing 6 of these every week, but besides that, we're going to pick up the pace of webinars on specific subjects that you are interested in. And so in that question and answer things, any input you can give us would be very helpful. You can just put it in chat, or you can just contact us through the web and just say, look, I really would like to hear this, that, or the other thing, and we will put it in the in our calendars in terms of when and how we're going to be able to do that. Before we get into Bitcoin's action today, which was very exciting for a lot of people, we're going to try to answer the question, is the bottom in after this pullback, which at one point hit Tone's 30% minimum pullback, but then we went a lot further. And you've heard a lot of people talk about 7,500 to 8,500. Socrates has in a couple of ways. I've said the same thing in a couple of ways, and I want to really look into that a little bit today. Also, Socrates is going to present a new chart. Everybody's got a mental picture of what's going on, Bitcoin versus the alts. When you look at Bitcoin dominance, you know things are happening, but he's come up with a very clever way of seeing where it's actually happening, over what time period, who's winning and who is losing, and I'll have some fundamental observations about that. Last thing before we get going is thank everybody that showed up for the webinar on retirement accounts. It did extremely well from the perspective of what we covered and how people responded to it. I love the fact that after we provide information, people get back to us and say, after listening to that, I went out and I set up an IRA and I fully funded it. That is music to our ears. That's what we are here for. We want people to learn from our experience and our observations. Obviously, you make your own decisions, but that was great. And we've got, I think, the most important one we've done since the original Hyperwave, which will be a week from this Friday. And that's going to be on Consensio, intermediate and advanced, and trading Consensio, which will lead into some other things that will follow. But we'll give you the details as we get closer and closer to that. We'll get a great description written up so you'll know what is included and what's not included. We'll also give you some things that you should probably review if you're going to listen to that. It won't be a lot of homework, but it'll be enough so that you will be up to speed very quickly within the webinar. And that will also be on a Friday like the last one was, a week from this Friday, 12 to 3 o'clock. Okay, enough of that. I'm going to turn it over to Socrates to pull up the Bitcoin charts, which are looking very interesting. And then we will take a look at a very sleepy stock market today and a very sleepy gold market. So we won't make a lot of observations there, other than to say, the longer they hold these patterns, Socrates showed you one yesterday, the better it is for higher prices. Also, just in terms of the stock market, one of the people I follow on Wall Street, almost more than anyone else, is the head of Guggenheim. His name is Scott Menard. And I heard him today on CNBC with a target very similar for the S&P that we've been talking about, somewhere around the $3,500 level. So when we get to the stock market, we'll take a look at that. And with that, I'm turning it back to Socrates.
All right, that sounds like it's time to go ahead and go on screen share and take a look at some charts. Remember to click on that. And okay. So first thing that we've got here are one of the simpler forms of technical analysis, but also one of the most powerful, is just simply drawing horizontal areas of support and resistance, opposed to just using a simple line. Both Tyler and I prefer to draw these as zones. And I really like to see areas where the price will wick down into, but fail to close in there, showing that this was strong support. And here, another area of support, just horizontal off of this low from July 2nd. First thing that we notice is that this did create a higher low. So that is something to me that is significant, and is a bit of a signal of strength in the sense that support did move up, and we spent even less time here. Last time we got down below 10,000, we had a big close down at 98.30, and then only one more candle, one more candle that stayed below 10,000. So spent close to about 8 hours or so there below 10,000, whereas here we just wicked down and that got bought up very quickly. So that is definitely something to be paying close to, in the sense that we spent less time below 10,000, and we have also created a higher low, indicating that support moved up. Very interesting, and certainly a bullish sign. Go and get those out of here and pull up my EMAs. So as we were doing the show yesterday, I'm pretty darn certain I mentioned that this is a buy signal for me, testing the 200 EMA with a significant spread on the 50 is certainly a buy signal for me. And what is to be expected after testing this 200 EMA is to return to the 50 EMA, which is currently at 11,259. And that is definitely what I'm expecting from here. And we'll be paying very close attention to what happens at that point. I would definitely be expecting resistance to hold. We've got this horizontal level, which is in line with the 50 EMA, which has rolled over and it is now accelerating towards the price. That is a big area of resistance, and this is what I would expect to bounce up into there and then to pull back significantly more. So let me go ahead and put in just a couple arrows. So this is kind of about what I would be expecting based on the horizontals, along with the way that I view Consensio and trade the 50 and 200 EMAs. Makes a lot of sense to me that we should find some support from this 200, bounce back up to about 11,200, roll over there, and then come all the way down to 89.50 or so. And there are multiple reasons why I believe that this was not the local low and that more correction is on the way. And for those that have been following along, you do know that the most important thing to me is up the weekly candles. But before we pull those up, I did want to show the Lucid SAR, and this is a great example of how well this thing can work and even should work when it is basically calculated due to Wells Wilder's original calculations. So let's see, this is on the 4-hour chart. Right here, we had a high at 11,943.5. The SAR was 11,947, so only $4 away from there where that would have broken, went sideways, and then started accelerating all the way down here below this 200 EMA. It would have gotten broken right around 10,400. I mean, just stayed stuck to this price, failed to get violated until we really did reverse and go in the other direction. Now let's just compare this to the SAR that you would get on TradingView and see that there will be some areas where it's very similar, but the main problem with the parabolic SAR on TradingView is that it will adjust in real time instead of getting violated. And that is where you will get the price getting very, very close to it without violating it. We've seen a number of occasions where this thing would get, say, printed here, and then if the price got up here, it would just move itself in real time away from the price. So that would make it look like it is much more powerful than it really is. It would consistently be within a penny because it was adjusting itself in real time, which is absolutely not how Wells Wilder had it calculated. So even though this thing is adjusting itself in real time and moving away from the price as the price comes towards it, it is still less accurate than the one that we have developed based on Wells Wilder's original calculations. And I've seen this time and time again where ours, look at how it stayed intact this whole way through and accelerated closer to the price than the TradingView SAR, meaning that we got out at a better price and it didn't adjust in real time. It was printed there and we got out as soon as the price got up to that point. So TradingView seems to be trying to get that SAR to get a little more precise and to get it closer to the price, but it never really is. Wells Wilder's calculation, from what I can tell, every time is better. See right here, it's getting us a better stop. And here, when TradingViews is giving a better stop, it shouldn't have. You would have been more beneficial using Wells Wilder's and not getting stopped out and then getting to ride this thing all the way down. Just absolutely beautiful. Really, really loving this new SAR. So that was a little bit of a tangent. We can go ahead and leave that on for the weekly because it is in an important spot as well. Notice how it remains intact and is now moving sideways due to not being able to be above the low on July 1st. So it is currently at 96.27 and remains bullish and is painting a very interesting picture in the sense that this has given us a great signal, but it is showing us that this is getting close to exhaustion since it has been in the same direction for so long, and now the price is getting closer to it. So something to definitely pay attention to. When that breaks, I would definitely be interested in potentially selling more or looking at some alts to sell, because that would be a very significant signal for me. Most important indicators are just simply these candles. This high volume shooting star, this hanging man or spinning top, whatever you want to call it. This other big bearish wick on top, bearish body. This is the main reason why I am leaning bearish is because of these weekly candlesticks. The 4-hour chart really looks like it could go either way, but I am really expecting it to continue correcting to the downside, because this is showing such a significant sign of a reversal from these candlesticks. Also from the parabola break that we recently got on the daily chart. Let's see if I can get that pulled up quickly enough. And this might not be exactly how I want to draw it, but you get the gist that it looks like yesterday this thing was violated. And when that happens, that is a big signal to me that a major correction is on the way. So we've got this parabola break, which also is in line with this sort of blow off top that we got on the 4-hour, which is very important to me. I was talking about this as it was happening as a big indicator to me that further correction was coming. So parabola break, blow off top, reversal candles on the weekly, all telling me to stay short and potentially medium term bearish. Last thing I will go over before turning it to Tyler is the Wyckoff distribution that we have been taking a look at. I think that I am more comfortable with how I want to label this. Yesterday I had some questions. Now I am looking at it on the 12-hour chart, and it's painting a bit of a better picture, and that's got me looking at a different schematic, and also has me thinking that the best selling opportunity may still be on the way. So as quickly as we can, we're going to go through. We've got the preliminary supply, buying climax, automatic reaction, secondary test, and let's see here. Excuse me, automatic reaction, secondary test, signal of weakness in phase B. Okay, right here. And then we do get the UT in phase B, because this did get slightly higher than the buying climax, so that is a UT, and we are still in phase B. That's the second test of resistance after the SOW, so that all lines up there. And then right here, which they don't really label, is what I am kind of thinking that we're seeing here. And if that is the case, we should get something along the lines of, well, that's about as messy as it could possibly be. Hopefully we can do a little bit better. So notice what happens as it goes up into the LPSY and then comes down and then consolidates and then breaks down. So that is something that I'll be watching very close for, is seeing this kind of jaggedy action, which brings us up to an LPSY, which should basically come back to somewhere and test that area of resistance somewhere in here. And when that happens, if it creates a lower high and then rolls over, that will be a tremendous selling opportunity from my perspective. Again, not telling you to do anything, just telling you what I am looking at and what I would be seeing if we are able to get all the way back up to 12,500 or so, and it rolls over to create a lower high below the UT in phase B, and ideally below the buying climax. That is the point where finally we can start to take some action on this pattern. Right here, making sure that long exposure is covered, and potentially looking at some short exposure, which I would be more interested in altcoins, When long the strongest, when short the weakest. And then right in here, if we were to come down and get this next, both of these LPSYs would be great areas to add, potentially looking at 33% here, 33% here, and 33% there. I'm not really thinking that this should get up to 12,500 because of Consensio on the 4-hour. I really don't think that it should get back above the 50 EMA, which is waiting around the 11,250 area. That's really where I do think this should peter out. But if it doesn't and it does blast through, I will still be leaning short, medium term bearish and watching for this lower high. So basically, plan A for me is for this to resist at 11,250 and then for that to lead into a death cross with the 50 and the 200s. That's plan A. If that doesn't happen, plan B that I'm expecting would be the completion of that Wyckoff on the 12-hour chart. I would give both of those like something like 33% chance, and then saving 33% chance for plan C that was the local low, and we do go on to smash through 14 and keep on going from there. So I give it maybe about a 1/3 chance that this was the low. That is a very low percentage for me, saying that I think this is 66% not going to make a new high. That is a confident prediction for me, and I tend not to get much more confident than about 66 to maybe 70%. So definitely feeling good about my position, about having sold spot, and about looking at adding into some shorts on alts. And that is all of the reasons why. So should I go ahead and throw it back over to you, or did you see anything on the chart that you wanted to point out?
No, that's all great stuff. I'll just throw up a real quick chart that in a number of ways will complement some of the points you just made. We talked about this yesterday, but these, I'm not sure I've read too much about people looking at parallel horizontal channels as fields or zones, but I've used them for a long time. And a lot of it has to do with my love of high energy physics and what happens between a point or a particle in a field. And just the concept of a field is very interesting to me. But anyway, on the monthly chart, I'll start with the weekly chart. We talked about this briefly yesterday, and you heard Socrates talking about the zone around here that prices have come down to, and between 10,100 and 11,100, there are various ways to draw it, but when you get 5 weeks in a row where price is ping-ponging back and forth with wicks going much higher and some bodies sneaking out and some bodies staying below and other bodies coming right down to various points, that's a good way of identifying that on a fundamental basis, there's probably very large players in a small market like this that are doing what they do, the algos, as a bunch of people call them. Just use Fibonacci and other ways to get targets where they're going to take things, and then they get out of their positions. And it's very interesting the way this action took place on the downside back in February and March of 2018. And we're seeing the same sort of thing here today. Now, that also means that basically if you can get above it with any kind of strength, and I think that 12,000 kind of number that Socrates was just talking about is his plan C, is probably that area, 12,000, 12,500, 13,000. But a full candle clearing this zone would be very, very bullish to me. On the other hand, I'm not expecting it, other than I've got a lot of long-term and intermediate-term indicators saying this thing is still very, very strong. And this is simply a pause to refresh before blowing through to the upside. So the action today is interesting to me. We're up $686 on Bitcoin. I'll just drop down to the daily chart, which everybody else is following also. And on this daily chart, the top of this line is right about the 12,000 level, and the bottom of the line is around 11,500 on the daily. And we came right down to it. We wicked below it. We did the same thing back in here on a couple of occasions. To me, this is important, that this old phase 2 line basically tried to hold the price above it, and then it didn't. And now we're snapping back to that. And if we do snap back to it, kind of in the same vein that Socrates was talking about, I think that is very important as overhead resistance. So I agree. I am still looking for 7,500 to 8,500. I'm getting a little nervous at the number of other analysts that are looking for that 8,000 region. You know, I would prefer to be lonelier, but there's an awful lot of smart techniques and tools that are saying that everything that Socrates talked about, this top on a daily, weekly basis, in terms of what the candles were actually doing, the story they were telling, is very significant. That is not conclusive, but it must get you leaning in the direction that this is not over. And until we actually can break below, I would say, this area where the setup trend line was coming in on a closing basis, which would also take it below the original phase 2 line on the weekly basis. I think there's a good chance just to, as I call it, ping-ponging back and forth between these support and resistance areas. That looks a little bit like what the Wyckoff distribution chart is saying, that we've got more to do before the evidence is in exactly what we're looking at. So we haven't changed very much. We did not buy the bottom at 3,000, but we did buy it at 6,000. We've still got half of that 6,000 in this trade, and I'm not thinking of getting out of it because I do like all of the long-term indicators, the ADX and the Copic and Consensio, saying that there is more left in this tank. However, on the short and intermediate term basis, it's very difficult for me to argue that we don't have more downside and possibly a lot of downside from current levels, at least down to the 75 to 8,500 level, and maybe all the way back to down to 6,000. So with that, I am going to step aside because I'm very interested in looking at this new chart that Socrates has, comparing some of the major alts, not all of them, but enough of them to give you a spectrum against Bitcoin on a graphic basis.
Absolutely. Pulling that up now, making sure I remember to click on that. Okay. And I should be screen sharing to everyone now. And this is the chart that I have been looking at. Let's see here to try to help me to understand what's been going on with some of the different altcoins. Most of us have this sort of mental image that we see Bitcoin really taking off and alts lagging. So I just kind of wanted to take a look and see which alts maybe are lagging the most, potentially which are keeping up the best, and if there's any sort of patterns that can be ascertained from that. And definitely do see some interesting action that we did have Litecoin really in a big way let us out of this bear market. And that is something that I have never really mentally conceptualized until putting this chart together. So Litecoin is in purple, and I know that this is going to be pretty messy and hard for people to see, but hopefully you can get an idea of what we are looking at here. Let's get these all back. Okay, so take a look at how Litecoin, this purple, everything came together back here beginning of 2019. It's like everything is coming together. Basically nothing is really moving out of line with anything else. XRP did have a little pop back here in December 2018, and these are all USD pairs, just so you know. And then it did come back. So right here, February 2019, right at the bottom, it's like everything kind of converged. And then things really started happening right here, first month of 2019. First thing that really happened is Litecoin was down here, I want to say around $25, $30 or so. And it started taking off in January and really left everything else behind. While it was taking off right here, it had made a big move, and we've got all sorts of different price scales. Every time I put a new chart on here, it gave us a new price scale to look at. So it is a little bit confusing, but still just helps us to visualize what exactly is going on. And Litecoin, it really, look at from Bitcoin didn't take off until March 25th, 2019. It was really flat and didn't break above 4,000 until that last week of March. But Litecoin had already made a huge move from down here at the lows all the way up here. So let's just go ahead and pull up the Litecoin price chart from January until April to see what was going on there, what prices it got to. So Litecoin USD from January until April. Notice how it bottomed, right here around $25 or so, and then just really took off from February 8th, 2019. It went from 33 bucks up to about $100 in April. So what do we have? About 2 months, maybe 7 weeks, where the price goes from $33 all the way up to about 99, 300% move in about 7 weeks, topping there in April before pulling back. What was Bitcoin doing? Bitcoin is this sort of teal, and it was stuck back in here all throughout February and March. And Litecoin got all the way up to 100, right? It went on its run up to 100 right as Bitcoin was breaking through 4,000. And then when Bitcoin broke through 6,000 to 6,500 right in here, that's really when it started to take off and leave everything else behind for the most part. It caught up to Litecoin in basically no time. I mean, it was really lagging back in here, and then boom, once it took off, it caught right up. Litecoin did go on another little wave, but it has rolled over significantly, pulling back hard as BTC continued going up. And it's been years that people have been talking about decoupling from alts, or some sort of some sort of flippening with another large cap coin or whatever. This right here, these last, from June to July, this last month is really showing a significant decoupling between Bitcoin and alts. We've got a handful that have been selected, some large cap. We've got XRP, which really didn't get anywhere. Ethereum really lagged in a huge way, getting up to about 350 when Bitcoin was all the way back up around 14,000. And then right here is where things really get interesting on June 22nd. Look at Bitcoin continue to take off, and Litecoin just totally reverses. If that's not decoupling right there, then I don't really know what is. Bitcoin up, Litecoin down, and Litecoin going into a halving. Let's see right here, Bitcoin up on July 22nd from about 10,000 to 14 or so, and XRP down big. These are USD pairs, okay? USD. This is decoupling, is the most that I have ever seen it, and it's only started to happen in the last couple weeks. When Bitcoin broke through 65 and then 10,000, it took off, and alts versus USD sold off across the board. That is the first significant really divergence between Bitcoin and the alts versus USD that I have seen. I have seen alts go flat while Bitcoin goes up, but I have never seen alts against USD go down while Bitcoin is going up. And not only down a little bit, I mean, this is down in a big way. And now when Bitcoin is ready to correct and reverse, and these have already broken down support and rolled over MAs and really started to enter short and medium term bear markets, when Bitcoin corrects, now these things have been selling off even harder. Now that Bitcoin has corrected, it first had that first wave down, but now it's even harder. Look, it's sharper and farther down when Bitcoin goes down. ETH2, it had a little sell-off here, but now it's harder and sharper. XRP for sure, harder and sharper. So this is very, very interesting action that we have been seeing, and is really exciting to me and Tyler, anybody else who is a Bitcoin standard bearer, who believes that Bitcoin can change the world through being a reserve currency, and really believes that it is the only one out of all of the number of alts that are going to survive and actually add value to the real world and actually make an impact. This is what we have been wanting to see. It means that not only will there be potential new demand coming in from people that aren't in BTC that are wanting to buy it with their USD, but there would also be demand from everybody who is stuck in Litecoin and Ethereum and XRP. I probably should have Bitcoin Cash up here, but I don't. These are some big market caps that if people really start flying to safety, that's a lot of money that could go into Bitcoin, which could really drive the next bull market in a much bigger way than it could have otherwise. Just imagine, I think of it, there's a mental picture where Bitcoin right here, these are all balls and chain. Bitcoin is trying to take off, and it's got this huge weight that it's trying to pull with it. It's trying to lug along a ball, like 1,000 balls and chains. As it is trying to rally, it's having to try to lug along all of these along with it. The other thing could be, whereas if these start really selling off and diverging, then it would be the opposite, where the alts would kind of be providing some sort of fuel to the flame of BTC, where in the past it was trying to lug along these balls and chains. Now it is on Bitcoin. If it can take off and leave alts behind, Bitcoin would be on fire and absolutely crushing, and alts would be just adding gasoline to that fire, which is basically the exact opposite of a ball and chain, which is exactly what we need to happen for this market to right itself. We need Bitcoin back up at 90% market cap dominance, and these last couple weeks to month are painting a very important picture that tells me Bitcoin will get back to 90% market cap dominance in 2019. That is a call that I have made months before, and I continue to feel very good about it. 2017 was the year of alts taking away from the Bitcoin market cap dominance. 2018 was the year of the great bear market, and I really believe that 2019 will be the year of Bitcoin leaving alts behind and returning to 90-95% plus market cap dominance, which would absolutely send it over six figures in my mind before the end of 2020. So very, very important stuff, and I will continue to try to get some visualizations together to help me see what exactly is what's going on. If Bitcoin's going up, what's going on with the others, what others are really lagging, and on down the line. So really looking at XRP right here as it's lagging in a big way, is testing horizontal support. If it breaks down its horizontal support, this could diverge in a much bigger way than we are seeing out of anything up in here. So very, very exciting stuff, and just another kind of visual to help us get an idea for what exactly has been going on.
Yeah, I love it. I really do. If you could just keep it up for a second. What's been intriguing me since I really started studying Bitcoin, and I really got into it in 2012, 2013, 2014, and then I didn't like what I was seeing and I left it. Not from a fundamental point of view, but because I just couldn't believe all this stuff going on with alts. And until what Socrates is now pointing out graphically, I just didn't see any way out of this mess. And Hyperwave gave me one way to mentally be able to understand what could happen, which would be a total collapse of the entire crypto space, including Bitcoin, from which Bitcoin would be the only phoenix rising from the ashes. Now, when you look back at the beginning of 2019, the end of 2018 on this chart through March and into April, you see the beginnings of that happening, meaning everything going down together, pulling each other down, people in the space getting very nervous that they didn't really understand what was going on, and no one on the outside showing any interest whatsoever other than to say, we told you so. This whole thing is a sham, it's rat poison, and it's only there for illegal activities. The vast, vast, vast majority of the world believes that. And that's what caused the bear market. And so I groused about it, and I said, yeah, but it shouldn't be. Bitcoin should be standing out. It will never go away. It's always going to be there. What I didn't foresee happening, and I'm not saying it is a fait accompli at this point, but is the chart you're looking at now from 2019 to the present. Here you've got at least an intermediate term bull market in Bitcoin, and it looked like an intermediate bull market in Litecoin and maybe Ethereum, but Ethereum was kind of lagging. Now we're debating, people are debating, people that I have a lot of respect for, that we're finally getting the pullback on Bitcoin we've been waiting for, from $14,000 all the way all the way down 40, almost 5% from top to bottom. And therefore, that might be all there is, or it might go a little bit lower depending on various patterns. If Willie Woo's right, it could take 6 months to get down to $8,000. If Wyckoff distribution plays out the way Socrates is saying, it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to happen over weeks or even months before it breaks down or proves that it's going higher. But look at what's happening with things that have been number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 at various times. And if you take a look at the other 3,000, you'll see very similar things happening. I love CoinMarketCap, just to glance through it several times a day just to see how things are going. But this is a different story. And to me, I'm beginning to think that the story is that everything up to this point was a very small number of people trading among and between themselves with no adoption, no institution. Yeah, you can name 3 or 4, but come on. No institutions, no adoption outside of a tiny circle of people trying to mess with each other by moving the price and forcing people out of their positions one way or the other over and over again, buying and selling back and forth to each other. Now, all of a sudden, I see a new possibility, and that possibility is that if Bitcoin keeps climbing 50%, 55%, 60%, 65%, 70%, 75%, while not really going anywhere for the next month, 2 months, 3 months, but we get this action in Litecoin and Ethereum and XRP and Decred and Neo and Qtum and all of these kind of things. If they continue to deteriorate, Bitcoin doesn't have to be going up. And more importantly, if Bitcoin finds a bottom in here at 9,500 or 8,500 or 7,500 or down at 6,000, and I find it very difficult. I can't come up with too many ways we can get below 6,000 at this point, but I'll name one in just a second. But in any case, now all of a sudden you don't have the barnacles. Now all of a sudden you don't have the balls and the chains. Now all of a sudden you don't have the resistance being sucked out of the life of Bitcoin because people are jumping out of Bitcoin to buy this other nonsense. And therefore it's got clear running room, which means adoption can take place very, very quickly with institutions of all types, ETFs and mutual funds and all of the things I mentioned in the article, where I try to come up with a fundamental way we can see Bitcoin take its place in the macroeconomic scheme of things. You can't do that without adoption. And the only way I could see we could get adoption is if we could get rid of all this other baggage. And now we're seeing it happen right in front of our eyes, while Bitcoin has just moved from 3,000 to 14,000. So that story is not complete yet. What happens if Litecoin and Ethereum and all the others take off to the upside while Bitcoin is coming down? They all meet somewhere in the middle again. And the chart looks like the one over on the left, on the going all the way back to 2017 into 2018, the down part of 2018, where everybody's just all together again. Then we're back in the soup. So I'm not trying to draw conclusions over limited data. This is limited data, but it is unique relative to what I've been studying going all the way back to 2013 in terms of the way prices of Bitcoin were acting, and then 15, 16 as some of the alts were coming along, and then just the obscene late 2017 and 2018, where they just were a wild herd of leeches and lampreys and ticks and bloodsuckers hanging on to Bitcoin, bringing it down with them. Something new seems to be happening here. That's why I'm so excited about this chart. I know a lot of you have already looked at charts like this, built them yourself, but I like the way Socrates has done that. So thank you very much. And that's all I had on that.
My pleasure. Yeah, and just zooming out a little bit and looking back, we can see how correlated these things have been all throughout 2017 for the most part. We see Bitcoin is in teal, it goes up, everything else follows. Bitcoin down, everything else down. Bitcoin up. The worst that you see is flat. Others flat. I remember ETH was flat in here, building that beautiful ascending triangle. XRP was flat, consolidating very tight. So we have seen BTC up and others flat. But that is, like I said, the worst that I have really seen. And notice how correlated these stayed. So BTC up, everything else gets pulled up with it. BTC down, and then just look at throughout the bear market how it almost looks like moving averages that are trending, in the sense that you've just got the same sort of, it's just everything is moving in tandem. Everything is moving almost exactly the same. There will be some small times where we see some differences, but for the most part, BTC down, everything down, 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 down. BTC up, everything up, 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 up. Every time the BTC bounced in 2018, alts bounced harder. And when BTC bounced, alts gained value against BTC all throughout 2018. So really we saw a very, very strong correlation, and also the alt outperforming BTC in that bear market. And now look at how different this picture looks. We have never throughout here had this picture where Bitcoin teal is on top and something else is going down. And matter of fact, everything else is going down. We just haven't seen that before. So that is absolutely a divergence to pay very, very close attention to. And often these first divergences are the only real thing that you can see before it's too late. So definitely something that I will be paying very close attention to, and just wanted to go ahead and pull back up the ETH BTC chart because this has been the most important for me. I've been waiting for this to break down 0.025 before having any confidence that I did think that what I was seeing was going to happen, in the sense that BTC would continue going up and alts would either severely lose value against BTC or lose against BTC and USD. So here we'll definitely be looking at any bounce we get as a great selling opportunity. And I am in a significant short position from up in here, and am looking to add because of how confident I am in what I am seeing. So we'll be looking at my favorite indicators, which are going to be this trend line, which is right in between my two moving averages. That is just perfect. It tells me that there is a strong trend. The moving averages are following the trend line, and it also shows a huge confluence of resistance. If we go up and hit the 50 EMA, big resistance there. If it can make it through, okay, we've got another area of big resistance at this trend line. If it can make it through there, now we've got another area of huge resistance from that 200 EMA, which is rolled over and trending down hard. So this is ideal for me. An ideal sell setup, an ideal buy setup would be inverse, where you have a bull trend line and the 50 EMA trending above it and the 200 trending below it. That is the perfect sort of trending setup for me and one that I want to bet confidently on. We do see a significant wick. This thing got all the way down to 0.02, lost about 25% of its value in, what was it, 2 days after breaking down that low. It went from 0.0234 all the way to 0.02 in the matter of 2 days. And now it looks like it's ready for a small sort of relief rally. And if that does happen, then I'm going to be licking my chops at selling the 0.023 area. My target remains 0.0075. If I am wrong and this does turn around and reverse fully, then I should be able to get out somewhere in this range. If it gets up to 0.028 and spends any time there, then it would reverse these moving averages. So the risk reward is excellent, and the whole market is agreeing with what I'm seeing here in the sense that Bitcoin goes up and alts versus BTC go down. Bitcoin goes down and alts versus BTC go down. So the most likely scenarios of BTC going up or down leads to the favorable result of alts going down versus BTC, leading to a high probability trade. So definitely loving what I'm seeing here and going to be continuing to add on any bounces that we get. And we'll be wanting to bet really pretty big. So that is what I'm looking at for the overall alts, and then also just ETH versus BTC. So I will go ahead and get off screen share. It looks like we've made it to about an hour. Is there anything else that you have to add, Tyler?
No, that's some great stuff. A lot of exciting things happen. It's not just price going up and down and making money or losing money. It's understanding all the parameters behind this amazing thing called Bitcoin. And to the extent that we're beginning to see that there is a differentiation in the minds of not only the people within the crypto market, but outside of it. The SEC gave us a great clue in terms of regulating all these others. I don't like to draw correlations, but I think that was a very important accidental statement by one of the SEC folks about Bitcoin really stands alone and all the others are basically regulatable. It takes a long time for that sort of thing to sink in. And after they close down this exchange and that exchange and start going after different things, the psyche begins to change of people saying, well, I guess that's right. If regulators around the world are saying maybe this Bitcoin is different, then there's two reasons to sell altcoins. One is you don't want all of a sudden to hear a knock on the door of the offices of an altcoin and open the door and see a bunch of people standing there with badges. And if you're an investor in that thing, you don't want that to happen to the company. But the second thing is, to the extent that it becomes clearer to the media, to institutions, to analysts, that there is a significant impenetrable difference between Bitcoin and every other project, if that begins to sink in, that is the second reason to buy Bitcoin and sell the other projects. And too early to tell if we're seeing it, but it sure the heck looks like we might be. And that is the most bullish thing that can be happening for Bitcoin. And I'm very excited about it. Okay. We should pull up very quickly two fairly boring charts for today, but they're not boring in a much bigger sense. And that is the two charts that have broken out above new highs. Bitcoin has not done that. We're debating when, if, how it's going to do that. But the other ones are the US stock market and gold. That's the way I like to look at the world. I like to start at the very big things that matter and see what they're doing before going down to the specifics about where you're going to put your money in this, that, or the other thing. And this is the first one. It's the weekly S&P 500. We're not going to go big into it. It was slightly up today, but it is holding now in the fourth week. I'll give it the third week since the breakout without any significant pullback. The Dow was up 27 points today. The NASDAQ was up 23 points today. The NASDAQ 100 up, reverse that. The NASDAQ was up 14 points today. The NASDAQ 100 up 23 points today. So some movement. We've got 5 weekly stop and reverse points coming up. We've got the long-term really accelerating, long-term moving average. Remember, I use different ones than everybody else in the world, 2, 7, and 30. I don't change those. This is the 30-week moving average. My intermediate term is skyrocketing, has just hit a new high in the last week and a half, and that's my 7-week. And then the one that I've designed to go right through all the prices all the time is just a 2-week moving average, and it's just keeping right up. We're on a 5 on the weekly basis on the NASDAQ. We got 4 weeks to go. I mentioned to Socrates, I heard Scott Menard from Guggenheim, who's one of my favorite analysts on Wall Street. He's got a target of around 3,500 on the S&P 500, which sounds eerily similar to what Socrates was talking about in terms of measured moves and what I've been talking about for some time. And that certainly doesn't make any of us right, but I love to get intelligent people drawing conclusions that turn out to be similar than mine, so that if and when they go wrong, we all look foolish together. Anything, Socrates, on S&P?
Nope.
Okay, great. And then I am just very quickly going to pull up the other big winner in terms of the most important technical signals I am seeing. One is in the US stock market, and the next one is in the gold market. Gold was flat today, down $1, I believe, on the XAUs. Yeah, not even 1/100%. So now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, which is a pretty good breakout and consolidation. It's forming something that could be, as Socrates was saying, that looks a little bit like either a flag or a symmetrical triangle off of the wicks from the bottom and the top, whatever it is. On a technical basis, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks of positive SARs. We've got the long-term moving average moving up sharply. We've got a space launch on the intermediate term moving average, and that is the definition of a bull market. And we'll just keep following it. It still could be a bull trap every hour that goes by, and it doesn't spring the trap, the better. The longer it stays a distance away from that 5-year overhead support, the better it is. And the reason these 3 things are so important to me, Bitcoin, the stock market, and gold, is because of the macroeconomic situation. Among those 3 things, there will be winners and losers, big time, the biggest in financial history. And we are on the verge of getting evidence on all 3 of them. How much more exciting can it be? And with that, I'll turn it back to Socrates. Anything on gold today?
Not necessarily. If you could put it on the daily chart.
Got it.
Yep, that's where I'm looking at the pattern there. So it does look like we are did have a bit of a higher low and a higher high today, even though it is a red candle. It looks like we are still getting squeezed inside of this pattern, and I would expect this to break soon. I mean, maybe with a week. Within a week, I would expect this thing to make a move, and if those daily parabolic SARs get broken, then it could be a good confirmation that that it's not like a fake breakout, and that it is ready to go ahead and continue. So that would potentially be a sign to go ahead and add or enter. If not entered into this, would be just looking at that trend line that would be drawn, probably something like that, and then also looking for confirmation from a break of the parabolic SAR. So everything is looking very good to me on that chart. Quite bullish still. Definitely think that this is a bit of a reaccumulation period.
Yeah, it appears that way. Nothing is certain. It's great when you get this kind of formation taking place above an accelerating long-term trend line.
And potentially we could even label that a ascending triangle if we use the close on the 9 and turn that into a horizontal line. That might be best as an ascending triangle. Yeah, I think I like that best, showing that we are peeking through that area of resistance, but always closing below and then establishing higher lows. Yeah, I would call that an ascending triangle, which is significantly more bullish.
Great observation. I love it. Okay, very good. I am going to stop sharing. Hopefully I don't turn off the... Oh, good. I didn't do it. Great. So that's all I had today. Anything else, Socrates?
That is all that I had. Definitely very excited about what we're seeing in the Bitcoin market, specifically as it relates to the first signs of a divergence from Bitcoin USD versus Alt USD. It is still potentially in an area where it could be a trap and getting ready to reverse in a big way to the upside. I don't think that's going to happen, but it still does need to spend some time down here. Kind of like Tyler's saying with gold, the longer it spends above that horizontal resistance, the more likely it is to be a real breakout. Same thing that I'm looking at with ETH, BTC, and pretty much the rest of alts versus BTC. They have broken down some major areas of support, but we still haven't spent much time down there, maybe only a day or two, and that still is potentially a recipe for a big trap and a big move to the upside for alts. I don't think that's going to happen, but I am in ready position. I've got my, I'm not going to be complacent about any of my positions that have been moving in my favor. And the longer that we are able to keep alts below key areas of support, the more likely it is that they really are ready to basically die on down to at or near zero, which is definitely something that is a controversial topic for a lot of people, but it is the position that we have, that is eventually going to happen, and the sooner that it happens, the better. And what we're seeing right now indicates to us a maturing market, and a market that is starting to distinguish in between the value proposition of a blockchain and of Bitcoin, and why or why not that may not be needed or isn't needed for any other type of business or project. It is only needed for sound money. So that is very exciting for us, and we hope that this is the tip of the iceberg, and that the longer that we can continue to see this divergence develop, the more confident we will be that this thing really is ready to correct and get alts going where they need to be, which will help Bitcoin get going where it needs to be. So with that being said, we will go ahead and sign off. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and sticking with us for well over an hour now. And we will be working on that new schedule and hoping to bring much more consistent and segmented content to you guys on a daily basis to YouTube. So thanks again. Thank you, Tyler, and we will plan on catching up with everybody tomorrow.
Great. Thank you, Socrates.